Welcome guys to the first lesson of this course, and in this lesson we'll be setting up the game environment. We'll work on setting up the platform, skybox and the ocean. So let's switch over to Unity. And now as we are going to make a mobile game, let's change the build platform from PC Mac to iOS. And let's move the game tab from over here to over here like this. This makes it easy to see the scene view and the game view right side by side instead of going back and forth like this. And now let's start setting up our platform. Let's start by creating a cylinder and then name it ground. Make sure the position is set to 0, 0, 0. And then let's scale it up to something like this. Now let's remove the capsule collider and add a mesh collider to it, and then make sure convex is checked. Next, let's create a material for this. So let's create a folder called materials, and inside the folder create a material called ground. Let's change the color to something like this, and then assign this material to a ground. Next, let's set up our skybox. Okay, wait, let's let's change the position and rotation of the camera so our ground is clearly visible. So let's change it to 22, something like this. Alright, now let's set up our skybox. So for the skybox, I've already created an asset. To get the asset, go over to your web browser and then go to github.com/abhidc1/hyper casual game course and click on clone or download. Once download finishes, open up the folder and then extract the files. As you can see, I've already downloaded and extracted the files, so I'm just going to delete these as we don't need that anymore, and then open up this folder. And as you can see, it contains all the assets that we will be using in the course. So for now, let's just open up the lesson 1 folder and then double click on the skybox package. Open and then click on import. Once the import is complete, open up the hyper casual game course folder and then go inside the skybox folder, and then go inside the prefabs folder and drag and drop the skydome prefab into our scene. Now as you can see, our skybox is visible in like scene view but still not visible in the game view. So to fix this, go to your camera and then change the clear flags from skybox to solid color. This is required because we are using our own custom skybox instead of using the default skybox that comes with Unity. Next, let's select the sun and then zero out the Y rotation on it. Now our skybox setup is complete. Next, let's set up our ocean. So for the ocean, we need water shader, and to get water shader, I'm going to share a trick with you guys that I use a lot while creating games. It really helps in speeding up the game development process. So for this, go to your web browser and then go to Google and then just search for whatever you need help with. So it could be character controller or some kind of AI, etc, etc. In our case right now, we need help with water shader. So I'm going to search for Toon water shader Unity, and once you've written what you need help with, at the end add a keyword called get. So as you can see, we got a result that is by Toon water shader by Iron Warrior. So just click on this result. So basically what this does is it pulls up all the repositories that are related to Unity and water shader. Just in case you don't get similar results and still want to use the same asset, just type this URL in your URL bar and then you can download the asset. Down here you can see how this asset looks. So to download the asset, click on clone or download and then click on download zip. Next, open up the folder and then unzip the files. Once that is done, open up the Toon Water Shader folder and then go inside the assets folder. Now we need to import all these assets into Unity. So for that, let's go back to Unity and create a folder called water, and then just import all the assets inside this folder. Alright, so once the import is finished, open up the mesh folder and then drag and drop the pond prefab into a scene. Now let's open up the prefab and then depend the water object by selecting and dragging and dropping it into the scene like this. Oh yeah, okay, so in Unity 2018 you just cannot edit the prefabs directly. To edit them, you need to first unpack the prefab. So for that, right click on the prefab and then click on unpack prefab. And now we can depend the water object by selecting and dragging and dropping it into a scene like this. Now just go and delete the pond object as we don't need it anymore. And then now let's see our water object. It's quite small right now, so let's scale it up to something like this. Perfect. Now let's assign the water material to this. So go over to materials folder and then drag and drop the Toon Water material onto our Toon Water mesh. Now if you noticed, it's still white. To fix this, go to your camera and then attach a component called camera depth texture mode, and then change the depth texture mode from none to depth. This is required because some shaders require the texture mode of the camera to be set as depth. By default it is set as none. That was the reason why our water looked completely white, and changing that to depth made it work just fine. Alright, so there is one more problem that needs to be fixed. If you look at the water material, if you look at the water over here, you will notice that the tiling is messed up. This is because the way we scaled up our water mesh. To fix this, simply go to your Toon Water material and then increase the tiling a bit. So I'm just going to change the X to 5 and Y to 20, and boom, as you can see, the tiling is it looks nice now. So let's hit play and see how it looks in the game view. Alright, so it looks pretty decent, but we can definitely improve the quality by adding some objects and some animations to our scene. So let's do that. So go over to the mesh folder and then drag and drop the lifesaver tubes into a scene. Then position them some over here like this. And then duplicate the lifesaver tube and then move it over here. Now let's just select both of the objects and then assign the material to them. Alright, next let's add some animations to the skybox and the tubes. So for the skybox, we'll add animations to the clouds, so it looks like the clouds are moving. And for the tubes, we'll add a floating animation, so it looks like they're floating with the water. So for the animations, I'm going to use an asset called DoTween. To get the asset, go over to Windows and go to Asset Store. In Asset Store, search for an asset called DoTween. There are two versions of this asset. One is paid and one is free. In our course, we are going to use a free one, so click on this one and then click on download. I've already downloaded the asset, so I'm just going to click import and then click import again. So once the import is complete, the setup panel will show up. Just click on DoTween utility panel and then click on setup. And then once the compilation process is complete, click on apply button. After that, you can close this panel and then close Asset Store as well. Alright, now so let's create a folder called scripts. And now let's create a script for our skybox, and I'm just going to call it skybox. Open up the script and let's remove the unwanted lines. And then at the top, make sure we have added using dg.tweening, because we are going to use the DoTween library. And now let's create a public variable called public float. speed. Let's add a function called animate, and then make sure the function is being called when the script starts. Oh man. Animate. Inside the function, let's do something like transform do rotate new vector 3. So what this does is it rotates the object by 1 degrees by given speed, and then it also sets the ease of the animation as linear, so the animation is constant throughout. And then at the end we set the loops as -1. -1 is infinite. If you write 1 or 2, it will just loop the animation once or twice. So I've written -1, that is infinite, so it will keep on repeating the animation over and over again. And the loop type is incremental, so every time a loop ends, the next loop will rotate the object 1 more degrees. So it starts with 0, then goes to 1, 2, 3, like that. It just keeps on going over and over again. So let's save the script and go back to Unity, and then select a skydome, and then assign our skybox script to the object. Let's set the speed to 0.01, and then let's see how it looks in our game. Okay, my bad. Let's set the script to something like let's set it 1. Alright, that looks nice. So next, let's make the animation for our tubes. So for that, I'm going to create a script called tubes. Open up the script. Let's remove the unwanted lines. Then make sure we are using dg.twinning. Now let's create 2 variables. One speed, and then another float variable called amount. Let's name this animate, and then make sure this function is being called when the script starts. Inside the animate function, let's do transform.doMove y, and then let's do Alright, so what this does is it will move the object in the y-axis, only in the y-axis, and then to whatever point we have assigned in our amount. So if we write 1, it will move the object to 1 unit in the y-axis by the given speed, and then our ease is linear, so the animation is constant throughout. And then our loop is set to -1, that is infinite, and the loop type is set as yo-yo. So what this does is it will move the object to the new position and then go back to the previous position. So let's save the script and go back to Unity. Select the tubes, and then assign a tube script to the tubes. Now let's set the speed to 0.75 and set the amount to 0.1. Let's hit play and see how it looks. There we go. As you can see, it's moving up and down like it's floating. Alright guys, so our game setup is complete. In next lesson we will be creating our player character and then rigging and animating it. I'm going to share a trick with you guys that I use when I'm working with humanoid 3D characters. Using that trick, I can rig and animate any character within 5 minutes. See you in the next one. Cheers.